there, Atheist Junior here, your friend and humble narrator. And I started a little bit late because I was having some tech difficulties with OBS. For some reason, I have this problem sometimes. It just uh, does not want to play the audio for my media sources. I don't know why. But yeah, so I am trying out a little bit of a new schedule on my channel. So starting this month of February, I took a little break at the end of January, so I wanted to really hit the ground running. So for now, tentatively, I'm going to try and be streaming every weekday afternoon. See how long this lasts. But okay, so it's been 9 months since I did my debate with Kent Hovind. I was extremely inexperienced when I did it, so I'm kind of surprised that it happened at all. But I think I did a good job, especially considering the fact that it was my first debate ever. Not Never did a debate in school, online, nothing ever. Going against Kent Hovind, who admittedly is it's Kent Hovind, but still he's an extremely experienced debater. So a lot of people underestimate him, and debating him is not as easy as you might think it is. It's very intimidating and very challenging. And yes, it is an Emma Thorne hat that I'm wearing. It's some of her official merch. Part of the reason I wear it, besides how stylish it is the fact that I use a green screen. So my hair is just way too long right now, and it messes up you can see the outline, and hair just messes that up. So I'm not going to waste too much time in the intro. Let's get started with my opening statement. I won't have too much to say because I stand by everything I said here, but I really want to get to the opening statement. You guys in the chat can let me know if you want me to skip Kent's opening and just get to the part after that, or if you want to play it. So let's get started. All right, thank you, SFT. Thanks, Kent, for being here. Okay, so there was a reason that I chose the topic of today's debate to be, should evolution be taught in public schools? Now, right off the bat, I want to define a few words. Evolution, a change in allele frequencies in a population over generations. Microevolution, variation within species driven by natural selection. Macroevolution, genetic changes at and above the species level, which includes speciation. Micro and macroevolution are both subsets of evolution. They encompass the same process, but at different scales. Science. Science is two things. One, the pursuit of data and understanding of the natural world, following a systematic methodology based on evidence. Two, the process of using the scientific method to research these natural phenomena, do experiments, and make novel, testable predictions. Now, Kent conflates my definition of evolution with Big Bang cosmology and the origin of life because he's attempting to back up his argument that evolution is a religion. So he's forced to say it goes all the way back to the beginning of the universe, like creationism does. Kent claims that evolution should not be taught in public schools because it is a religion. Evolutionary theory does not describe a moral code to follow, the origin of the universe, or life on Earth, and does not describe an afterlife. I would have preferred to ask, should young Earth creationism be taught in public schools? But I knew Kent wouldn't accept that topic. This is because Kent absolutely will not defend his own worldview during a debate. Kent will not defend the Bible, likely because of the fact that there are many passages in the Bible that he knows are indefensible. Still very true. If you see the debate with Professor Dave, Kent absolutely would not talk about the Bible under any circumstance. And yet he says, oh, the Bible is, you defend the Bible like you defend a lion. Like, okay. It's got lots of contradictions in it, but okay. In fact, I could write a better book than the Bible. All I would have to do is take the King James Version, rewrite it word for word, but reverse all of the pro-slavery sections to be anti-slavery. The people in the comment section when this video got uploaded on Kent's channel were screaming at this part. They got so mad when I said this. Now, Kent will try to poke holes in evolution, but if someone ever tries to challenge Kent to defend creationism or the Bible in a debate, he will say, I'm not asking for my theory to be taught at taxpayer expense in the public schools. Now, this right here, this is the reason I debated Kent Hovind. This is the number one point I wanted to make. It's the most important point I make, and it's a point that I think every single person that debates Kent Hovind needs to make. Because it's critical, because, like I said, Kent won't defend not only the Bible, but his younger creationist beliefs, because he knows that he doesn't have any evidence to back up the stuff he says. He literally will just say, "Oh, I think the ice canopy, it was probably like 10 feet thick, or I don't know. It's gone. It's gone now. It fell down. It fell down after the flood. And maybe it got held up by like an inflatable dome, or maybe it was the magnetic field that held it up." Or maybe it was, like magical pixies. Or maybe it was Eric Hovind who held it up. I don't know. It's gone. It fell. But you ask him, okay, well, do you have any evidence that there was a giant ice canopy that surrounded the Earth? He's like, I don't have to defend my theory because my get out of jail free card. This is not true. It's just Kent's get out of jail free card in debates. It's him trying to shift the burden of proof onto me. Kent published and sold a video called Public School Presentation, where the intro says teachers can teach using the Bible. He also sold a book by Duane Gish titled Teaching Creation Science in Public Schools. And Kent has tried to get what he calls lies out of the textbooks. He did this by trying to influence legislation in Arkansas by working with Representative Jim Holt to draft House Bill 2548. Now, the point of this bill was to limit and change what could be printed in textbooks. The examples given were classic Hovind talking points about vestigial structures, the geologic column, carbon dating not working, etc. The bill attempted to block public schools from spending tax dollars on textbooks that contained quote-unquote false or fraudulent information. So this bill claimed to have a list of information taught as facts about evolution that has all been proven wrong. However, I can show that at least one of the claims featured is false and fraudulent. It claims that carbon dating is ineffective because of an example given of a mammoth's lower leg having one date and its skin having a different date. Kent never references this in the whole debate, I just completely show what a liar he is, and he knows it's completely indefensible, so he does not want to touch it at all, even when I bring it up. However, if we look at the actual scientific paper that the information came from, we can see that the first date on the top right, if you can see that with the red arrow, is 1940. But the date on the bottom right is 1948, meaning that these two specimens were not the same animal. They were a different animal. It was not the same mammoth. Okay, just to clarify my point here, because I'm not sure if I presented this in the best way, Kent, when he says, oh, carbon dating doesn't work, one of the examples that he would give is how they carbon dated a mammoth and it returned two dates from the same animal. But if you look at his source and then you look at the actual paper and what it said, it was not the same animal. It was two different mammoths. So of course they're going to give different dates. That's pure dishonesty. Now, creationists say that evolution can't be true because we weren't there in the distant past to observe it. But we do see evolution happening today. In the lab, scientists studied a form of unicellular algae called Chlamydomonas. They exposed the algae to a filter-feeding predator, and in response to predation, several specimens evolved multicellularity as a defense mechanism. So this is a true multicellular organism that used to be single-celled, and the experiment happened over 50 weeks. Now, Kent might say that it's still an algae, but normally this algae is single-celled and only brings forth more single-celled algae. But this is a new kind of algae, a multicellular one with new genetic information. It got new traits like an extracellular matrix. This is not just a colony because each cell cannot live on its own. And this is beneficial to the survival of the organism because it is now too big for the predator to eat. Kent likes to compare two intentionally different organisms and then ask if they are related. He did it in his opening. Yeah, I'll turn on the gain of my. Oh, let me turn up the gain of my mic a little bit for you guys. Let me know if that's any better because I don't want to be coming in too quiet. Oops, sorry. Intro. He does this intentionally to make common ancestry seem like it goes against common sense. He won't instead ask if a gerbil and hamster are related. But if he's going to ask how a mosquito and a whale are related, or rather how an insect and a mammal are related, I'll do my best to answer it. Okay, we have our first super chat from Goth of All Trades. It says, simping hard for you, AJ. Angel emoji. Thank you. I'm glad to hear that. Although I don't have a mediocre pussy.
DNA is the carrier of genetic information in living things. It is the reason that a dog only gives birth to other dogs. Both insects and mammals have DNA in their cells. By sequencing insect and mammal DNA, which involves looking carefully at the order of nucleotides, the CATG, scientists can see just how closely living things are related. So if you want proof of common ancestry, it is shown in the genetics. Genetics look at the order of nucleotides in DNA. Amino acids are coded for by mRNA to make proteins. But the important part is that we intimately understand the mechanisms of evolution. We can test them, and we can understand how these contribute to evolutionary novelties. We can take that information and generate a tree of life from it.
Shout out to Jackson Wheat for helping me write this opening statement.
So why should evolution be taught in schools? The reason it is taught in schools is because it has produced cures for diseases such as penicillin. It is also used in the research of AIDS, cancer, and more. So schools need to educate the next generation of scientists and doctors and give them the tools needed to continue fighting novel pathogens.
Yes, I did read your super chat, but I will read it again. From Goth of All Trades for $5. It says, "Simping hard for you, AJ." And I said that I don't have a mediocre pussy.
Deadly microbes and antibiotic-resistant bacteria. It has also led to new discoveries and breakthroughs in agriculture and farming. For example, by using artificial selection, humans created the modern Cavendish banana and created broccoli from the wild mustard plant. Now, this is
Wow, this guy is good. Somebody get this guy a YouTube channel with 3,000 subscribers.
Led to less world hunger. So it's important that the new generation of agriculture students and farmers learn about evolution. Students can learn about topics that might conflict with their religion.
You can just hear me shuffling the script as I'm reading it. Oh my god, it's embarrassing. But hey, I rehearsed this opening statement like a lot. Like this is like my best take. You know what I mean? Because I was freaking nervous. I'm not even gonna lie. I was really nervous doing this because this was when my channel had like nobody was watching my channel. Like I had literally like not like 7 viewers. I had like 300, 400 subs. I mean, I love my day one viewers. Like you guys are awesome, but I'm just saying, not that you guys are no one, but just that not as many people are watching as they are now. And I was just not. I didn't even have a webcam. I was just not very experienced on camera, and this was the biggest audience I had ever been in front of, and I was I was nervous.
Without compromising their beliefs. Evolutionary theory is one of the fundamental building blocks of our understanding of life, as it is currently the best existing scientific explanation of the way our species came to be. How evolution works is vital for all students to understand. Students should not opt out of learning about a central tenet of contemporary science. But if they have religious objections to the theory's implications, the public school has no right to insist that they believe it, that is, to regard evolutionary theory as true. They don't have to believe that humans evolved from a fundamentally different species, but it's important that they understand why a majority of scientists agree that we do.
I think this is an important point, and I think it really throws a wrench in all the stuff that Kent Hovind tries to say. Because he spends so much time saying, "Oh, they want to make your kids believe in evolution, and it'll weaken their faith." But it's like, okay, they don't have to believe it, but they should at least understand the material. You know what I mean? They should at least understand the like. You don't have to agree with somebody's arguments. I don't have to agree with someone's arguments, but if they have good points to support their position, I can say, okay, I can see where you're coming from, but that's just not what I don't agree with the conclusion, but I can see that you've supported your conclusion with different bullet points of evidence. So you should be able to understand something even if you don't agree with it.
So Kent is free to disagree with the scientific consensus, but arguing that kids shouldn't learn about evolution at all and framing it as dangerous, forbidden knowledge is unfair. At least let them learn the subject matter and truly understand it, and then decide for themselves if they believe it.
Somebody in Kent's comment section or live chat says that Kent doesn't do that. He literally has a presentation called The Dangers of Evolution with Hitler on the cover.
We are entering the next century in which the United States will be even more dependent on science and technology than it has been. Our country's future demands a citizenry able to use many of the same skills that scientists use in their fields every day.
Yeah, so I basically ripped this argument off from Bill Nye, but it's a good point.
Observation, careful reasoning, critical as well as creative thinking based on what is known about the world. Having an ability to use scientific knowledge and critical thinking depends on the education that people receive in K through 12. So if Kent wants to argue that evolution should not be taught and claims that he is not asking for creationism to be taught, then I would like him to explain what should be taught. Should it simply be neither?
In science class, we should teach science. That is such a cop-out answer. Oh, okay. Well, what do you mean by science,
If evolution has the burden of proof, in my opinion, it has satisfied it many times over and has lapped young Earth creationism. If Kent thinks he has no burden of proof, he has no justification to say that creationism should be taught outside of his YouTube channel. So I say, let creationists teach what they want in Sunday school, but stay out of public schools. And that's my opening statement.
Okay, well, thank you for that opening there. AJ, you got a couple minutes to spare.
I think that was a good opening. I stand by everything I said in that opening still. I think I did a mic drop at the end. Okay, from Scott Duke for $5 dues, it says, keep up the great work, Atheist Junior. Well, I will try.
So I'll throw it into the open discussion period. Dr. Hovind, whenever you are ready, you've got
Kent Hovind is not a doctor.
You've got 10 minutes.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Appreciate that. I understand why guys like Atheist Junior and others do not want to really give the whole meaning of the word evolution. They want to start with macro and micro evolution when quite obviously you have to have something to evolve. Where did life get started? The 6 meanings that I have given for decades are cosmic.
Wait, 6? Oh, okay. Okay. Never mind. I was like, 6 meanings. Slide only has 5, but it's not including micro. So these are all 5. These are all religions. Each one of these is a separate religion. So there's a church for cosmic evolution. There's a church for chemical evolution. So all evolutionists, they have to go to church 7 days a week because they have all these religions. So they have individual religions for all the 6 steps. And then since atheism is also a religion, they also have to go to church on Sunday. So it's a lot of church services.
Evolution, where did time, space, matter come from? That's certainly a phrase they use, cosmic evolution. You can Google that. It's found all over the place. And it is taught in schools, the Big Bang Theory. So that should not be taught. If he doesn't want evolution, if that's not part of evolution, well, then take the Big Bang out of the textbooks. It's not.
That is a really ridiculous argument. If the Big Bang isn't part of biological evolution, that means it's not science and we should take it out of the schools. But Kent, you say that evolution isn't science. So if the Big Bang isn't part of evolution, doesn't that mean that it's science?
Not part of science. Then you'd have to have the.
Also, evolution books don't have the Big Bang Theory in them. I challenge you to find me a book from an evolution textbook. Not a general science textbook, not a general biology textbook. A textbook from an evolution class and show me the chapter on the Big Bang. You can't.
Chemical evolution, where the hydrogen from the Big Bang evolved into all the other elements. That's never been observed. That's a religious belief, but it's not science. Then you'd have to have stellar and planetary evolution. We've never seen a star form. We've never seen a planet form. Nobody has ever. So,
they literally saw the stages of a star formation in real time recently. It was in the news like last month. So you're wrong.
They're out there. So how did it happen?
Also, I've never seen a mountain form in front of my eyes, but mountains still exist and are still forming. So why is it any different for planets or stars? The only reason that Kent has to say, oh, we've never seen a star form, he acts like, oh, there's no stars forming anymore. The only reason is because the Bible says, basically the Bible says that God already formed all of the stars already at the beginning of the creation, which I don't even know if it really says that. It just said God made the stars also. But I don't see why God can't still be creating stars. I guess it's because, oh, the creation was done. So yeah, Kent has to say that no new stars are forming, which is just obviously not true. We can see stars forming in Crab Nebula.
They have to be able to give an answer for that if they want to teach it in public school. Our discussion tonight is, should evolution be taught in public schools? There's a much bigger question. Should we have public schools?
Of course we should. Parents have to work jobs. They can't all homeschool their children.
Maybe the parents ought to be teaching their kids what they want them to learn, but that's a different topic. The origin of
Did you homeschool your kids, Kent? No.
life has never been answered. How did life get started? And if a bunch of intelligent scientists someday do create life in the laboratory, all that would prove is it takes intelligence to make life, which is what I've been saying all along.
Maybe it takes intelligence, which wouldn't even prove that, but it wouldn't be an intelligent God creating life. It would be a human.
But AJ wants to start with macroevolution, changing from one kind to another.
No, I want to start with microevolution. Micro and macro are both part of the same theory. They're just evolution at different rates.
And he says it's the same thing as
No, I did not say it's the same thing. I said they're part of the same theory. They're just evolution happening on different scales. Microevolution is evolution within a species, and macroevolution is evolution between species.
microevolution. This is absolute baloney. Nobody's ever seen an animal change to a different kind of animal. Let's see. What we've observed is 339 recognized breeds of dogs now in 10 different groups. They still had a common ancestor called a dog. And yet AJ believes an amoeba turned into a dog.
Don't tell me what I believe. I don't believe that. Did I say that?
They will divert attention from this obvious teaching by saying, well, of course, dogs produce dogs. That's what evolution says. Well, that's an absolute lie, because evolution's, if they believe dogs produce dogs and amoeba produce amoeba, did the amoeba eventually produce a dog over billions or trillions of years? I'll give you
An amoeba is not a species. An amoeba is the group.
all the time you want. So they do teach that animals change to a different kind of animal, which is not, the Bible says clearly 10 times in the first chapter and 10 more times in the flood story that the animals bring forth after their kind. Now, Darwin.
The Bible also says a lot that you can own slaves. So what? Doesn't make it true. Just if the Bible only said it 9 times, would that mean it's not true? What is the relevance of it saying it 10 times? The Bible says a lot of things. Christians pick and choose what they want from the Bible. So just saying the Bible says this, okay, well, the Bible also says not to wear mixed fabrics and not to eat crustaceans with shells like lobster or bacon. But you do that anyway. It's like, oh, I'm not Norwegian. I'm Norwegian. I'm not Jewish. Hovind, I made you out of clay.
Apologize, I've been talking all day on tours here.
Well, maybe you should consider shutting up forever then, Ken.
Darwin muddied the water by titling his book The Origin of Species. Well, is species the same as kind?
No, species actually has scientific merit as a term. And species is part of a Linnaean taxonomy, or the Linnaean classification, where you have not only species, but you also have order, group, family, genus. This is the big difference between species and kind, because Kent wants to conflate them. But the big difference is species, you also have these other categories. But with kind, creationists, they slide what kind means up and down this Linnaean scale, which is just like, well, why don't you just use the actual scale then, if you're going to conflate it with that?
I don't think so. In some cases, it might be. Microevolution is variation within the same kind, and that one has been observed. Evolutionary changes within a species or small group of organisms, especially over a short period of time. Developing 339 breeds of dogs from a dog would be considered microevolution, and that is part of science, and that's as far as it goes. Example of microevolution. They're talking about antibiotic resistance, pesticide resistance, herbicide resistance. The mosquitoes in the north, in region 8, are bigger than the sparrows, I'm sorry. Sparrows are larger in Minnesota than they are in Florida. Wow. Okay, they're still a sparrow. And the bigger bodied sparrows are going to survive better where it's cold because they maintain the heat better. It's a simple surface area to volume ratio problem. Bigger animals have more body mass that can't maintain their heat. Of course, they're going to be bigger up north. But they say that's an example of evolution.
Yeah, it's an example of natural selection, where animals that are more well adapted to their environment tend to survive and thrive, whereas animals that aren't tend to go extinct. That's part of evolution, Kent.
The mosquito population. They've evolved over billions of years. The mosquitoes have evolved the ability to wait 9 more days to go dormant. It's still a mosquito.
What do you want it to do? Transform into a potato? Oh, it went from a mosquito to a potato. You see, this mosquito, they evolved to wait 9 more days to go dormant, but the mosquito didn't turn into a bag of Lay's potato chips. It didn't turn into a bag of barbecue Ruffles, my favorite. Hovind.
They're so desperate for examples. I have been saying for years, and AJ says he's watched all my videos. That's wonderful. Thank you, AJ. I just wish they would not use lies to teach their theory. If you want to teach evolution, fine, but don't use lies as an example.
Oh, if you want to teach evolution, that's fine. Except everything you use to teach evolution is a lie, and none of those lies should be in the textbooks. I don't want to get evolution out of the textbook. I just want the lies out of the textbook, and all of those lies are specifically related to evolution, even though a lot of them are misrepresentations of the evidence.
Like Haeckel taught about the embryo developing in the mother having gill slits. This was made up in 1869 and proven wrong in 1874. Here's the actual drawings, human embryo.
The actual drawings? Okay, I see what he's saying.
There's Haeckel's drawings. He lied. He died.
Okay, well, I disagree with you, but whether or not he lied, we don't need Haeckel's drawings. We can use microphotographs. And I agree that if a textbook has these drawings of embryos, that they should be updated because we can now use microphotographs of embryos, which are always going to be more accurate. So I'm in agreement with you there. However, there's no evidence that Haeckel was ever put on trial. And really, what Haeckel did wrong is that he rushed to put out the first edition of his book that had these drawings. And instead of drawing them based on, looking through microscopes, he was, which he did initially. When he was drawing everything for the book, he was rushing, so he drew some of them by memory.
Doctored them up, made them look alike. He had big charts of it.
He didn't make them look alike. He positioned the different embryos under the microscope in the same position, and he removed things like a maternal yolk from a reptile embryo. That way it would look similar to a pig embryo. But that's not like fraudulent. That's just removing unnecessary elements and framing it so you can see the similarities. If the similarities are there, it's not his fault if they look the same.
This chart right here is Haeckel's chart, proven wrong in 1874, still in the textbooks right beside me. Now, AJ, if you've got some evidence for evolution, I'd like to see it, but don't use the gill slits. And for me to go with Jim Holt and others and say, look, take the lies out of the books. Get this lie out of the book. AJ, if you value truth and science, why aren't you on a campaign to get the gill slit theory out of all the biology textbooks?
Because the pharyngeal arches actually are on human embryos, and it's not a lie. You're a liar. Can we get you out of the textbooks, Ken?
Because it's not science. Haeckel was tried at a university, his own university held a trial. 6 other professors said, Haeckel, you faked the drawings, man, you lied. On top are his drawings, underneath are actual photographs. He lied. He said, a small percentage of my drawings are forgeries. Those, namely, for which the observed material is so incomplete or insufficient as to fill in and reconstruct the missing links by hypothesis and comparative synthesis. He said I should feel utterly condemned were it not that hundreds of the best observers and biologists lie under the same charge. Wait a minute. His defense was, it's okay to lie because other people lie.
No, he's not saying that. He's saying that what you're accusing me of, this is how science is done, because it was like the 1800s, and they didn't have the quality of microscopes that we have now. So you had to fill in the blanks with something, okay? But now we have electron microscopes, and we have extremely accurate microphotographs of embryos. So this is a complete non-issue.
No, get it out of the book. This has been proven as a fake for a long time, AJ, and you know it. But I would guarantee you haven't spent 3 seconds trying to get this lie out of the textbook, because this lie supports your religion of evolution. The human embryo itself at the very early period can hardly be distinguished from that of other members of the vertebrate kingdom, Charles Darwin said.
That's true. It's true. Look at the microphotographs.
Based on Haeckel's fake drawings. These were frauds. It was brought to public attention in 1911, 110 years ago, a book called Haeckel's Frauds and Forgeries. So it's not true. I don't mind if they want to teach evolution, but they shouldn't be lying. Back in 1956, when I was 3 years old, they said,
that's like saying, look, I don't care. I'm not racist. I don't care about black people. They just shouldn't get married.
The biogenetic law as a proof for evolution is valueless. There's no value to it. The biogenetic law cannot be weeded out. It's been proven wrong, 1969. Biogenetic law is as dead as a doornail, 1988. 1997. Haeckel was convicted of fraud, but the drawings persist. Biology textbook at the University of West Florida, down in Pensacola, still teaching the embryology. Now, Haeckel's fake drawings, his exact drawings, still used at the University of North Dakota. It's just simply a lie. So my contention is, teach evolution if you want, but don't use lies to promote it. And I go through about 30 lies on my videotape, lies in the textbooks, video number 4. You can get in my series. So
Dude, don't advertise your freaking merch during my debate. Don't disrespect me like that, Ket.
I wish we'd get some honest evolutionists that would say, you know, we like our theory and we believe our theory. That's fine. But we should stop lying for evidence for our theory. They're telling the kids, I could go through 100 of them here, that the whale, see slide number 15, 18. The textbooks are telling the kids that the whale has a vestigial pelvis. There isn't an intelligent biologist on the planet that believes this is true. Those little bones in the whale's abdomens are part of its reproductive system. Male and female bones are different. They have to mate underwater in the dark with no hands, and they can't talk and say, scoot over, honey. They have to have special muscles and special bones to control all this apparatus to make it fit together. This has nothing to do with evolution. So take it out of the textbook.
Okay, a vestigial structure is just a structure that was inherited from an ancestor, from a common ancestor, but now either has a reduced function or has a different function than how the apparatus functioned in the ancestor. So whales, modern whales, had ancestors like Pakicetus that were four-legged vertebrates that could walk on land. Now, if you walk on land, you need strong leg bones and muscles to hold up your body weight. When you are in water, you are suspended by the water, so you resist the effect of gravity. This is why blue whales can grow to be the biggest animal on the planet, and possibly the biggest animal who's ever existed or can exist. But they don't need those leg bones anymore, so they've shrunken over millions of years of evolution, and now they serve the different but still important production of helping in reproduction. That still means they're vestigial. And I agree that it's wrong to say they have no function, but those textbooks that you're quoting from are from the year I was born, so they're likely out of date. we know, that's the thing. That's the difference between the Bible and science textbooks and scientific papers is science can get updated with new information. The Bible has to say the same.
But they're saying the whales used to walk on land. The whale retains pelvic and leg bones as useless vestiges.
Whale ancestors walked on land.
Still teaching it at the Jeannie Scott, still teaching it long after it's been proven wrong. Glencoe Biology, major publisher of textbooks, saying the whale has a vestigial pelvis that serves no function. Tell that to the whale. Modern whales
Whales can't understand English.
Have hind limbs which have been reduced to a few tiny internal hind limb bones that have no function. AJ, have you spent 3 seconds trying to get this lie out of the textbook?
Well, I'm going to say this later, but that's not a textbook. That's a children's book about whales and dolphins.
Or do you like it in there because it supports your religion? Just imagine whales walking around. Los Angeles Museum of Natural History has a whale skeleton hanging there. There's the bones right there. Those are not vestigial legs. They never have been legs. They were not legs. They're not going to be legs. They're part of the reproductive system. Nothing to do with walking on land. But they teach this in schools like it's part of it. National Geographic says humans or the whales had and dolphins had legs a long time ago. Whale's pelvis is located far from the vertebra and has no.
Okay, if dolphins didn't used to have legs, then why is it that some dolphins have an atavism where they're accidentally born with leg appendages?
Apparent function. The whale doesn't have a pelvis. That's the leg bone right there. We got one in our museum in the next room. Come on down, AJ. I'll show it to you. It's got a blood supply, a nerve supply. It's part of the control apparatus for making baby whales. Got nothing to do with walking on land, but they teach it like it's part of it. Vestigial structures, like the pelvic bones in the baleen whale. It's in all the textbooks. So my contention is teach. He asked, what should be taught? AJ, science should be taught in science class. We should teach science. What do we know? The word see or know. What do we know? We know whales make baby whales. We do not know that amoeba turn to whales. You can believe that if you want, but that's your religion.
Okay, we have a super chat from Nod to Nothing. It says, longtime viewer, first time supporter. Thanks for everything. Have you experienced much backlash from Hovind's community since starting? A little bit. I get the occasional comment from Kent Hovind fans. If they're really dickish, I'll delete them, but I usually like to leave them in my comment section because my audience enjoys arguing with those people, so I like to let them have their fun. But for the most part, not really. Okay, so I'm going to fast forward a little bit just to the open discussion, which is usually the only part of a Kent Hovind debate that's actually worth watching, so uno momento.
Examples like so we'll go over all of them. Gish Gallop, parents indoctrination, amoeba dog. You said the amoeba turned to a dog over millions of years. There we go. Time. That'll do it, won't it?
That's time, Dr. Hovind. Okay, well, thank you, gentlemen. That concludes the opening statements and rebuttals. So thanks to the both of you. We are now moving into a cordial discussion portion where, as always, we'll do our best to keep it equally timed, focusing on one topic at a time. Since Kent just ended his rebuttal, why don't we hand it over to AJ? AJ, why don't you start us off with the discussion portion? You are muted. Make sure you unmute yourself. And gentlemen, the floor is yours.
Okay. Yeah, with the example of Chlamydomonas, the multicellular algae, it gained new cells that have reproductive function, but in most multicellular species of algae, individual cells produce special sex cells called gametes that contain only one set of chromosomes, and the gametes from two individuals fuse sexually and can develop directly into offspring, or they can form cells that produce spores that create more algae.
They can also reproduce by cell division.
I also, you said that you don't want to pay for kids to learn evolution, but isn't Dinosaur Adventureland registered as a 501c3 tax-exempt organization since it's a ministry, which means that it doesn't pay property taxes?
Are
Okay,
you
go ahead.
asking? Or you
It's an
doing
open
a rebuttal?
discussion. No,
Oh,
it's open discussion.
Well, yeah, Dinosaur Adventureland is properties tax exempt. We don't pay for the public schools. That's correct. We pay gas tax and all kinds of other taxes on our stuff.
Sure.
It's off topic, though.
The dead silence after I ask him is my favorite moment of this whole debate. I just love it. Like, as soon I knew this was going to happen too. As soon as the open discussion started, I was just going to lay Kent out. Like, I'm not going to waste any time. And he immediately changes the subject. It's like, that's off topic. Excuse me. The topic of the debate is, should evolution be taught in public schools? You're saying I don't want to pay for evolution to be taught in public schools, and I'm this isn't even me saying, oh, ha ha, taxes. Kent, you didn't pay your taxes. I'm not insulting Kent. I'm asking him a question about basic fact. Once Kent got out of jail, when he was in jail, Eric Hovind had to register GodQuest, and then they made CSE a 501c3 because they basically had to. So now that it's a 501c3, that means that it's a nonprofit organization because it's a church basically. So they don't have to pay property taxes. And I actually did a video where I showed Kent's the CSE Dinosaur Adventureland tax information, and there's a big fat goose egg under property taxes. So this is not me trying to insult Kent. This is a relevant question to the actual debate.
The fact is, public schools should not teach lies. Don't teach lies. Teach truth. Get the lies out of the books, and you're left with nothing to support your theory. It's a lie to teach the kids the Earth is billions of years old. There's over 100 ways to prove it cannot be billions of years old, but
how is that not off topic?
You guys keep teaching it because that is what you have to have. Get it right side up. Time. I know full well your amoeba or algae stayed in algae. Didn't it?
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Things don't transform into different monsters. Like, this isn't Pokemon.
I have no idea what Pokemon is, nor do I care, but...
Well, okay, when you say one amoeba turns into a dog, one animal doesn't turn into another animal. Evolution is about population genetics. So you have a population of one type of organism, and over time, it develops into different populations because of natural selection. That's macroevolution. So it's not one animal just changing into a different animal. But I think you're framing it like that because you want to make evolution sound stupid, and then so you can make fun of it.
Proving my point.
Yeah.
But AJ, you said the populations develop over time. This is your belief. This never been observed. You certainly can't use any fossils as evidence. In any court of law, they would.
I literally didn't mention fossils at all. Because I knew Kent would say this. That's why I used an example that we've seen in the human lifetime.
An honest court of law, they would laugh at you by saying, look, you found bones in the dirt, you found fossils, you don't know they had any children. You certainly couldn't prove they had different. No animal today produces other than its kind. Every creature observed, plant or animal or insect.
See, I feel like this is a mistake here, but you can hear me trying to respond to Kent, and he just talks over you. You know what I mean? Like, he said that, I think evolution is stupid. And I say, I disagree, and you can't even hear me. And then he says, well, we know a fossil didn't have any children. And I say that we don't have to. But he just bulldozes you. So you can't say anything. And SFT is a shit moderator and does nothing. He's not even paying attention. He's too busy drinking soy.
Produces the same kind as itself. Mosquitoes make baby mosquitoes without exception. Now you can believe that over time it could do it, but that's your sky daddy. Time, billions of years will solve the problem.
So
is a
single-celled organism the same kind as a multi-celled organism?
I don't know. Is it actually a colony? Is it a
divert, red alert, change the subject. I don't know. I'll change the subject immediately, though. Oh, you don't know. I thought 99% of cases asking what kind an animal was could be solved by a 5-year-old, Kent. I guess we didn't have a 5-year-old on the panel, so I guess this will just remain a mystery.
Cluster of cells working together.
It's not a colony because in a colony, each cell can break off and live on its own. But in the example I gave, the cells can't live on their own. And it got new traits like the extracellular matrix that binds the new cells together. And it was also a beneficial mutation, or it was beneficial. A beneficial
Well, answer my question then, AJ. Can this new, you don't want to call it a colony, can this new multicellular
organism? Yeah.
Can this new multicellular organism produce with another multicellular organism just like it and make multicellular organisms? Or do they have to start with individual cells every time?
Hey guys, I am going to let this debate play for a little bit. I'll be right back.
Well, that sounds like sexual reproduction, which is not something that algae does. But the example I gave in the lab, it was a single cell going to a multicellular one. So yeah, It started with a single cell, just like you did in your mother's womb. You started off as a single cell, and you divided and added new cells until you became, all the cells you have today. And it's the same thing with evolution. That's like Evo Devo.
Oh, no, it's not evolution. Come on. Going from a single sperm and egg to a human being is following an incredibly complex code. Go to General Motors. They take a bunch of parts coming into one end, and out comes the car on the other end. Because a whole lot of intelligent people are GM's a bad example. Honda. They produce a car.
Your example earlier, I forget what brands of car you said, like GMC and Honda. You
GMC
said like
and Chevy, right? Lug nuts will interchange.
They both share the same lug nuts, but those didn't have a common designer. They had different designers.
So the lug nuts on a Chevy and the lug nuts on a GMC had different designers?
Yeah, they didn't have a common designer, like you said. So it's a bad example. And also, when you talk about this isn't evolution, this isn't evidence for common ancestry, it's evidence for a common ancestor. I would like to know where you get that conclusion from. It sounds to me like it's just something you say because they both have the word common in the phrase, so it sounds kind of like pithy and smart. But you're just making an assumption. The reason that scientists have proof of common ancestry is the genetics. You don't have anything like that to back up common designer.
The proof that we have is billions of farmers for hundreds of years observing. You plant corn grows. You cross your cows and you get a baby cow. I mean, every farmer on the planet will tell you that happens with all the plants, with all the animals. We have lots of observation of the variations. Same, obviously, kind. I think there are 60 varieties of oak trees now. They might have had a common ancestor called an oak tree. But you want me to have to pay to teach the kids that the oak tree.
What about bears? What about bears?
There are 8 varieties of bears. I don't know if they all had a common ancestor or not. God might have made 4 or 5 or 6 different kinds of bears.
Like grizzly bears?
Grizzly bears, polar bears, panda bears.
Okay, what about koala bears? Are koala bears the same kind as a grizzly bear?
I don't know. Somebody gave it the name koala bear. I doubt it. I don't think koala's in the bear category. But this is training at a net. Go back to my question. Your algae that developed the ability to live and work together in what you called a multicellular organism. How do you get another one of those? Do you have to start from scratch every time with individual algae? Or can they somehow make a colony into not a colony? Can this new organism produce another organism? Or does it have to start over with algae every time? AJ?
Well, I don't know off the top of my head. I would assume that it can start with either a single cell or another like small multicellular one that adds cells to it. But I would assume that it divides, and that new single cell one can produce a multicellular. This hasn't been observed in the wild. This example of Chlamydomonas algae, this was only done in the lab. And
sorry about that. Had a UPS package. Okay.
And so I can't really speculate about that.
Well, if it's only done in the lab, don't you see a problem here? Because this is not natural selection. This is.
We'll see. If something happens in the wild, then Kent will say that we've never, we've never observed it. Like you can't produce this, you can't make it happen in a lab. Make it happen again in the laboratory. But if we do it in a lab, he'll say, well, this doesn't happen in nature.
It's artificial selection. There's nothing natural about it. And that you rely on that one example.
If it's artificial selection, that makes it not evolution? What?
To say we should all teach that the amoebas turned to humans and whales over billions of years. I'll give you quadrillions of years if you want. We don't observe it. It's a religious belief. It's something you believe in, which is fine. Keep your religion at home. I don't want to pay for it to be taught. That's all.
Well, you don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. I don't.
There's all kinds of things that goes into the
I like how the people in the room with Kent laughed at my joke.
Public schools besides property tax, and I've paid plenty of property tax over the years.
Over the years, but not anymore, right? Okay.
So you're missing the point completely. All the parents are required to pay to teach that the amoeba turned to a whale. That's what the charts show. I've got all the pictures right from the textbook. I show it in my seminar. You've seen it. And you're dancing around the obvious. God said they'll bring forth after their kind. Do these multicellular algae things, do they bring forth? Or is it a dead end? You got to start over with single cells every time. And I already know the answer. You got to start over with single cells every time. So you haven't done a thing. You created a colony, I'll call it a colony, that built a wall around themselves to protect themselves. Okay, interesting.
It's not a colony. And I'm not relying on simply one example. There are lots
give me a 5,000 more, please, because you got to have billions of examples to prove your religion, not...
Yeah, you would have to have billions of examples for Kent to ever accept one, even though he won't. It's funny that Kent says this, because in a second, he's going to say, well, don't gish gallop, don't bring up so many topics, even though he told me, oh, well, bring up 5,000 topics, And furthermore, I don't understand, even if it was a colony, how does that make it not evolution? Kent brings this point up like 5 times because he doesn't know what else to say, but it doesn't refute my point at all.
1 or 2.
Well, the genetics show that you can follow it back like a roadmap to see that animals that are alive today have common ancestry with each other. The same as you would look at a DNA test to see that you are related to your mom and dad. Like I did 23andMe, and they got a saliva sample from me, but they didn't ask me, what religion I was. It had nothing to do with religion. So common ancestry can be proven by genetics, and that proves evolution. But there's also
wait, slow down now. Common ancestry. Okay. Don't gish gallop through this. We'll call it the AJ.
You asked me to give several topics.
Oh my God! I just caught that. He said, "Well, call it the AJ gallop." I never noticed that he said that. Oh, yeah, I'm gonna have to get another water in a second.
But yeah, I'm not gonna gish gallop.
The DNA that you had the 23andMe test showed that you came from your parents. I could have told you that without the test, okay? So were your parents human?
My parents were.
You see how he just talks over me? What I was trying to say is that you couldn't tell me who my parents were, though.
Oh, well.
Or what nationality they were.
Yes. Did they conclude your parents were human, or were they something other than human?
They're human.
That's me just like face palming at how stupid that question was. That's why I sounded so dejected.
They were human. How about the grandparents? You think they were human?
Sure.
If you go back 10 billion generations, was it an amoeba?
I don't know. But I would say no, it wasn't an amoeba.
See, this is what makes me mad, is because I feel like I feel like Kent won a point there because it made me look like I didn't know the answer. But it's just such a dumb question, and it took me a second to think about it because I was thinking, well, I don't know that off the top of my head. And then I was thinking about it, I was like, wait a minute. Like, I think you said 1 million generations ago, and I was thinking, well, no, that wouldn't be an amoeba. I don't know what it would be, but it at most it would probably be like something like a Homo erectus. You know what I mean? Or it would probably have still just been an early human. Like, how am I supposed to know the answer to that? But it wouldn't have been a friggin' amoeba.
But he asks questions like that are so ridiculous that if you're not able to answer right away, then it looks like he, won the exchange, which just irritates me. But again, you're intentionally going over this long period of time to compare things that are way different because you don't have a strong enough argument to argue your side. So you have to instead use these tactics of making evolution seem silly by saying, oh, look, an amoeba. Look, I'm a human. I'm a multicellular organism. But if you go all the way back, I wasn't an amoeba, but I just showed you that a single-celled organism can turn into a multicellular one. Okay, I'm going to get another water bottle. So I'm just going to let this play for you guys. People complain that I pause videos too much anyway. So, which is exactly what you're describing, an amoeba being the ancestor of a human, or a eukaryotic cell being single-celled organism being the ancestor.
Okay, well, we'll take your algae instead of an amoeba then. Why did the DNA in 23andMe show that your great-great-great-great-great-great-grandpa was an algae? The algae example you gave turned into a new, we'll call it a new organism, a bunch of algae cells together.
So it's a new kind.
What?
It's a new kind.
Okay. How do you get the next one? Do they start over every time with single cell?
I described how multicellular algae reproduce earlier.
Yeah, each one's got to start over every time. The DNA code, I can't believe you evolutionists want to use DNA. You should be embarrassed. DNA is the most complex molecule in the universe. There's no molecule more complex than a single DNA strand, and they are incredibly tiny. It's a gross oversimplification to say it's only got 4 parts, CATG. Each of those parts is incredibly complicated. You have probably 37 trillion cells in your body. Each cell contains these DNA. The gametes only have 23, but the rest have 46 chromosomes. One drop of blood would have 5 million red blood cells in one drop. 5 million. Each of those cells contains this whole unbelievable code. You know how many people it has taken over the years to reduce the size of a computer from the size of this room down to a chip you can hold on your finger? This taken a whole lot of small.
Okay, so we got Kent to admit there was a new kind. So that's a big step.
Smart people to do that. And the DNA code is 1 trillion times more complicated than the biggest computer we've got. Average human has 50.
At what point did I say that DNA wasn't complex? I mean, is it that complex? It's mostly just chemicals like sugars and phosphates. No, you couldn't squeeze this water into a dot smaller than a period as a page. But you want to put the whole Atlantic Ocean in there? And all of the zebras? All of the penguins? All of the Marmadukes? All of the anteaters? All of the Hovinds? You want to put Matt Powell in there? Don't put Matt Powell in there. I need him.
Trillion cells in their body, but it would only fill 2 tablespoons. That's the incredible code. Stretched out, each DNA molecule is about 6 feet long. Tie them all together. The DNA code from your body, each one about 2 meters long, a little over 6 feet, would go 13 trillion miles. All that's in you, AJ. Why can't you say, wow, God, you are smart? You want to give credit to an algae for making this incredible code? I'm baffled that you guys can't.
That's not what I said. And I'm not sure where you get to God or Jesus from the information that you just presented, but DNA is not like a computer code. I can tell you that because DNA can be redundant, where you can change one of the letters or multiple letters of the CATG code and nothing happens to the organism. But with writing computer code like C++ or JavaScript, a lot of times if you have one bracket or period out of place, it can completely screw up the program that you're trying to write. Bingo. So did you guys hear that? I think I hear John Maddox screaming in the distance because I said DNA is not a computer code. So they're not the same.
Point. Stop and think about what you just said. One little mistake, your mutations that you guys rely on.
No, in the computer code
screws up the code. It quits working.
Yeah, in computer code, but not in DNA.
Oh, okay.
They're so disappointed. Like,
I'm sorry, but like I'm sorry my example doesn't like prove your side. Like anybody who's written computer code will tell you that.
Bill Gates. Bill Gates said,
You
DNA is like
aren't listening.
software program, but it's much more complex than anything we've been able to design. IBM models its newest computers after DNA.
Bill Gates, the known atheist.
Yeah, he won't be when he dies.
Okay. So
The
it's a quote by
DNA
that.
code contains half of the contents
Shut up! I'm talking. Hovind's talking. I'm just gonna talk over you. I'm just fucking talk over you.
of all the academic libraries in America.
This is the guy who says, "Oh, Aaron Ra interrupted me 268 times during our discussion." You know, I didn't count the number of times. I'm not petty like that. I don't go back and obsessively watch my videos with Aaron Ra and cry and eat ice cream out of the bucket. You know, I don't do that every Sunday. Hovind.
America goes way beyond terabytes and petabytes to exabytes, yottabytes, and zettabytes.
You could fit the human genome on a 700 megabyte burned CD.
All the words ever uttered by anyone who ever lived would amount to 5 exabytes. Your DNA code has more than that. If you typed out the DNA code in your body, AJ, you'd have enough books to fill Grand Canyon 78 times. And you really think it happened by chance? I'm baffled. See, I don't have a problem saying, God, I want to praise you. I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. I can look at a complex thing like my Swiss Army knife and say, wow, this is pretty cool. It's pretty interesting, complicated, well made. I like this thing. I would never dream of saying, wow, the Swiss are stupid and it happened by chance. No, those guys were pretty smart to put this thing together like they did. And you talk about a computer.
By chance, you just mean that it wasn't created by a deity, then I guess so. But I wouldn't say that the life on Earth came by chance. You know, evolution is a natural process. It's not something that happens by random chance. It's driven by the environment. DNA is plastic to the environment. So like you said, animals like birds that have a larger mass are going to do better, or animals that have thicker fur are going to do better in cold climates because the environment changes what animal will do better there. So that's not random chance. That's pretty logical.
Okay, so you agree with me. Didn't you just say that I thought DNA happened by chance? But I just explained to you how DNA and how evolution aren't just, you know, totally random. Like if you want to talk about mutations, DNA coding errors, you could say that's random because DNA replicates itself and it's supposed to be identical every single time, but it's not always identical. So in a way, yes, that is random, but those mutations that come from that, those errors, they are going to be selected for by the environment in a way that is not random, that is very specific. So that's not coming by chance. It's not by chance that penguins live on the South Pole and not in the Mojave Desert. You know, it's not chance that, like you said, animals with thicker fur or more mass to their bodies do better in cold climates. That's not chance. That's logical. Often.
No, AJ, natural selection selects.
Well, it's
It
evolution.
doesn't create anything. It
No one ever
selected
said
the
that it
larger
did.
body sparrows. It only
No one
selected
claims that it created anything.
Well, real quick, I'm going
Natural
to jump in
selection.
there. I'm going to jump in because we'll just let Dr. Hope.
Oh, don't. Okay. It's important that SFT moderates. We don't want anybody to be over talking. Okay. Very biased and fair moderation, Donnie.
And finish his point, AJ, then we'll throw it back to you for equal time. Go ahead, Kent.
Yes, all natural selection did was select the bigger bodied sparrows to survive in the north. It didn't create the sparrow. It didn't turn him into a whale. It didn't turn him into a seagull. They're still a sparrow. They're just now slightly larger.
I thought I explained, Kent, that evolution isn't one animal turning into another animal. This isn't Pokemon.
Because the bigger ones were able to survive and make the next generation of babies, which are probably more of those will be bigger. Every farmer on the planet does this to get cows that give more milk, or cows that give more beef, cows that can stand the heat, cows that can stand the cold. They've developed who knows how many varieties of cows now, probably a couple of hundred.
They've developed so many varieties of Hovinds.
And they're always cow.
And they're always stupid.
So the sparrow, natural selection works great, but it only selects. You guys want to turn it into a creative process. It doesn't create a thing. Sorry.
So what? It doesn't have to. And even if I grant you that, that doesn't make it not a mechanism for evolution.
Strike 3, you're out. Go ahead.
Okay, AJ, go ahead. Equal time. Oh, no, that's fine. We'll hand it back to you. AJ, equal time. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think anybody. I certainly didn't claim that natural selection creates things. It's simply a mechanism of evolution. It's one part of it, like sexual selection or genetic drift or anything like that. So you can't just claim that natural selection creates organisms. It's just deciding, or it just shows which animals do better in which environments because they adapted to their environment, which also kind of shows that, in my opinion, they weren't created for their environment. Otherwise, they wouldn't have to adapt. You would just have animals put directly in the environment they belonged in.
You guys could tell me in the chat, do you think this is a good point? Because I'm not so sure, but I think it is.
Are you going to Q&A now, or should I respond more to that?
No, yeah, go ahead, Dr. Hovind.
You can tell Kent is not having it in the debate. He is not happy with the fact that I'm just pretty much blatantly interrupting him because I just didn't care. I was just like, I'm not going to let Kent talk over me the whole freaking debate. This is not going to go like the other debates with Kent. And Kent underestimated me big time. And once he saw how the debate was going, he was not having it. He was not happy. So he's already checking his watch. Like, were you going to Q&A already? I need to go sit in the hot tub with my 18th wife.
Respond to that.
Well, yeah, he's welcome to believe this, but why weren't they created? I think the fact that God gave the original cow the gene code, which is incredibly complex, to allow it to adapt to milk cows or dairy cows, milk cows or beef cows.
Milk cows or dairy cows?
It is pretty cool, but it's still a cow.
Yeah, because it's not going to frickin' turn into anything because this isn't Gen 1 Pokemon. This isn't Season 1 of Pokemon.
But that's all we've ever seen is variation.
This isn't Red or Blue. Okay? We're not to Soul Silver yet, Kent. We're not to Heart Gold. We're not to Sun and Moon, okay? We're not to the Hawaiian Islands, Kent. Don't say aloha to me. We're not to that episode of Pokemon yet. Who's that Hovind bomb?
Within the same kind. They've been trying to work with dogs to produce smaller dogs or bigger dogs, and they spent hundreds and thousands of dollars to make a dog like a Chihuahua that's completely useless.
It's not useless, Kent. If you get a dog and you love the dog and it gives you companionship and love and you enjoy taking care of it and you treat it right and it's a good dog and it's well behaved, then it's not useless, Kent. Just because it can't be a guard dog doesn't mean that it's less valuable. If you want a guard dog, go get a guard dog. At my house, like, we used to have a giant Rottweiler and a teacup Chihuahua, and they were best friends, and it was adorable. So, not useless. And I resent your hating on Chihuahuas, Kent. Correct yourself.
And wouldn't survive 2 minutes out in the woods. They didn't create anything. Natural selection, turn all the dogs loose.
Okay, I'm sorry for pausing so much, but this is a point that bothers me. I live in San Antonio, Texas, Kent. I would like you to come to the west side of San Antonio and see the Chihuahuas that roam the streets there. Because they are survivors, Kent, and they they don't move out of the way when they're in the street. They don't care, okay? Those are tough dogs. They don't just die immediately, okay? They'll probably maul you, Kent.
In the woods. Within 1 year, 95% of those that man has created would be dead. The hawks would have a heyday with the Chihuahua.
Well, then that would just be natural selection, wouldn't it be, Kent? Because they weren't adapted enough to their environment to survive. So you're just giving more evidence for mechanisms of evolution.
The bigger
Well,
ones couldn't survive because they can't run fast enough. The ones with the wrinkled skin, although they can't even see anything. 95% of the dogs man has created with a lot of work and time and energy wouldn't survive. Natural selection would put them all back to a wolf-like animal. Been a wolf and a dog probably have a common ancestor, but it doesn't mean it's an amoeba or an algae.
Okay. Interesting. So you say a wolf, a dog, and a coyote have a common ancestor. You say a wolf, dog, and a coyote are the same kind. Okay, what is that kind called? This is my question for Ken. What is that kind? Is it the dog kind? Because wolves aren't dogs. Coyotes aren't dogs. They're very similar, but they are distinct. So what would you call that kind? The canid kind? Like, that just, I mean, to me, that just simply doesn't make sense. And what about, big cats and house cats? Are they the same kind? Don't even get me started.
Okay, can I ask why is it that you would think if you took all of the skulls of different dogs, like a Doberman, a Rottweiler, and a Chihuahua, and even a teacup Chihuahua, all of those are the same kind, but if you look at the skulls of like Australopithecus afarensis and Sediba, and you lay those out all the way up to Homo sapien, you would say that one is ape kind and one is the man kind. Those aren't the same kind, even though the dog skulls look radically different, and the human to Australopithecus skulls look very similar.
Well, with dogs, we see not only the skulls, we can see the animals. They can produce the animals. A friend of mine said, we have a dog kennel. We've raised dogs for 100 years. My grandfather.
What? You didn't answer my question at all. And I think that was a great question. I think that might have been the best point I made in the whole debate.
Father started the kennel. I'm third generation. He said, I can tell you right now, we give us 20 generic dogs. Pick any dog you want. 100 years with selective breeding, we can make everything from a Chihuahua to a Great Dane all over again in 100 years of selective breeding. You get a creature like an amoeba with a much shorter generation span of 20 minutes. They, get born, grow up, get married in 20 minutes and have their own babies.
I guess you're just not going to answer my question then. This is one of the mistakes I made during this debate, is that I should have, told Kent, like, no, you didn't answer my question though. But the thing is that with Kent, you can ask him a question and then he'll spend so long talking that eventually you either forget what your question was, or he's now asked you a question and now you're having to respond to him. And so this is how he dodges questions, and it's very effective. I have to admit, it worked on me. I hate to admit that, but I should have, this is why I showed the clip the other day of Skip Evans, and it was so good because he asked Kent the same question 6 times and Kent didn't answer it. Okay, we have a super chat from Dave Dalafiore. Oh boy, the Kent and Donnie show. Bartender, over here. Yes, I know that some people probably need substances to get through hearing Kent's voice. I apologize. We're almost done.
That you still only see them produce amoeba. That's it. It doesn't happen. Now, I love the great faith you guys have. You have incredible faith in this natural selection process. You have probably more faith than most Christians I know of. But it's not science.
Okay, guys. So I think I'm going to end the stream here, because I usually like my videos to be about the 1 hour mark. And I'm going to do a part 2 of this video tomorrow. And we will finish watching the debate, because this is a long video, and it's tough to withstand listening to Hovind for this long. So tomorrow, I'm going to be streaming around this time, probably 1 p.m. is what I'm shooting for, 1 p.m. Central. So we will finish watching the rest of the open discussion and the Q&A, because there's some great parts in the Q&A, some really good questions where I ask questions to Kent. So thank you to all the people in the live chat. Thank you to everybody who sent super chats. Remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment telling me what you thought of the stream. And if you'd like to support my content past just engaging with it, you can go to patreon.com/atheistjunior, pledge as little as $1 per month. So thank you to everyone, and I will see you guys in the next video. Thank you for watching.